Great, thank you, everybody. And I am on dog sitting duty tonight while the wife is away. So if you hear dogs barking, it'll be just temporary. We've got a great meeting tonight. We look forward to hearing from Sheriff Alex Villanueva, who's been in our meetings before. And we have the challenger, Chief Robert Luna. So, and of course, we've got Phil Schuman, who's been our moderator before from Fox 11 News. So we have a very full meeting. We look forward to hearing you guys in just a moment. We do have board members that like to do the self-introduction. So go ahead. You've already met Bob. He's our vice president. I'm the president. Jules, you want to start off?
You're muted, Jules.
Okay, yes, I'm Jules Fear. I'm involved with community relations. Thank you.
Okay, Jay, and then Maria, and then Nancy, and then Tom, and then John. You guys unmute yourselves and introduce yourselves.
Hi, I'm Jay Weitzler. I'm the secretary of the organization. Also serve on the Buckley Committee and the Hillside Federation. I wanted to tell everybody about signing up for a couple of things in case we have any emergencies or alerts that we should know about here in the city. I think everybody's seen this week chances of a flood, believe it or not, coming through Los Angeles and causing a lot of enormous damage. So I wanted to let everybody know there's a couple of programs you should sign up for. One's called Notify LA. If you text ready, the word ready, to 888-777, you will be texted back the instructions on how to sign up for Notify LA. When you sign up for Notify LA, if there is a disaster that the city wants to warn us about, that will get you the quickest response. So it's text the word ready to 888-777. And yes, it's only 6, not 7 numbers. It's a little different. Also, sign up for emergencies from the fire department for LAFD alerts. You can sign up at bit.ly/LAFD alert. One word, LAFD alert. So that's sign up at bit.ly/LAFD alert. Everybody enjoy the meeting and ask some questions of our 2 suspects here.
And Maria Calban, I'm the chair of the Legislative Committee.
Hi, everybody. I'm Nancy Segoyan. I am the membership chair, and I want to welcome all our participants and all our guests tonight. I want to thank our members for making this possible. We are nonprofit, volunteer-run, member-supported. So if you are not a SOHA member, please go to our website and join. It is SOHA914.com, and you click on Join SOHA. Any questions, you can email me at joinsoha@gmail.com. Thank you. We appreciate your support.
Oh, hi. I'm John Eisen. I'm the treasurer of SOHA. Good evening.
Good evening, everyone. Tom Glick, board member, co-chair of the Land Use Committee, Planning and Plan Use.
Larry Slade, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself? Larry?
Sure. Hi, I'm Larry Slade. I'm honored to chair the Sherman Oaks Homeowners Association Homelessness Committee. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Okay, so that's our board. And we have Lindsay, who's the president of the Sherman Oaks Neighborhood Council. You want to say hello?
Hi, everyone. My name is Lindsay Imber, president of the Sherman Oaks Neighborhood Council, the most local government entity there is. We represent you to the City of Los Angeles and Council District 4, which we are partnering with for a free movie night in the park this Saturday, along with the backpack drive. For details about that and ways to get involved with SONC, including a schedule of our public meetings and ways to give public comments, visit our website at shermanoaksnc.org. Thanks.
Thank you. We have one of our senior leads on the call. Introduce and say hello and tell us what you're doing to fight crime and how we're doing in Sherman Oaks.
Yes, thank you, Matt. Hello, everyone. I'm Senior Lead Officer Mariana Romo. I cover the northern part of Sherman Oaks from the 405 to some parts of Magnolia, Chandler to Fulton, Coldwater area to basically the Ventura Boulevard North. My partner, Senior Lead Officer Saldana, covers the south part of Sherman Oaks, Ventura Boulevard South, but he's currently on his scheduled vacation. I just wanted to go over some crime stats that we have. Our crime is, for the burglaries, my crime is pretty high. It's about 20% higher than last year, and Saldana's is about 15%. But I wanted to talk about our GTAs, our Grand Theft Autos. My Grand Theft Autos are almost 20% lower than last year, but his is almost 15%. I wanted to mention that for last week, out of 16 Grand Theft Autos, 7 of them, the suspect had vehicle keys for the vehicle. Just as a reminder, please don't leave your vehicles in plain sight. Don't leave any valuables in plain sight, because that's the vehicle that the individuals are going to break into. Please police ourselves. As you guys know, we're low on officers. The best policing is community policing. I hope to get a great relationship with you guys. You guys have my contact information. Email is 40229@lapd.online. Give me a call, email, and I will gladly explain any crime that's happening in the area. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you. Ryan is with Councilmember Nithya Raman's office. Ryan.
Thank you, Matt. Hi, everyone. Ryan Ahari, happy to be here again. Sherman Oaks Field Deputy for Councilmember Nithya Raman. Just wanted to let everyone know some office ongoings. This Friday, August 23rd, really big news. Griffith Park, which is the largest park in Council District 4 and the largest ecological center in our district. August 23rd, Friday, 4 p.m. to 7 p.m., we are hosting an event with Assemblymember Laura Friedman, who secured $4 million in infrastructure and other parks upgrades. This is a really big deal. This is going to play into the future of Griffith Park. So please be there. There will be food, music. It's going to be a lot of fun. I also wanted to reiterate what President Imber said earlier. Our office is partnered with the Sherman Oaks Neighborhood Council for its annual summer movie series in the park. Join us at Van Nuys Sherman Oaks Park this Saturday, starting at 6 p.m. Pre-movie entertainment. 8 p.m. the movie will begin. We also are working with them on a backpack drive. So please come and donate either a backpack or school supplies, and that we will be working with the neighborhood council to distribute them to families in need in Sherman Oaks. And I did forget to mention the movie. The movie this Saturday will be Sing 2. So bring your kids and all of that. And finally, I wanted to give our neighborhood prosecutor, Andy Solomon, and all of our senior lead officers, especially Saldana and Romo, all of us have been working really closely together to bring abandoned and nuisance and problem properties into compliance in Sherman Oaks. And it really requires law enforcement element with Andy and our office working with the Department of Building and Safety. So I do want to give Officer Romo, since she's on here, a shout out, and Andy as well. Our office is continuing to prioritize these properties to bring them into compliance. And if anyone has any issues or concerns in Sherman Oaks that could use the council office's attention, 311 requests or anything else, you can always email me, ryan.ahari@lacity.org. You can also call or text my cell, which is 213-424-2412. Thank you, Matt.
Ryan, real quick point of clarification. You said this Friday, that's the 19th.
Sorry,
free food.
You're right. Thank you, Tom. I misspoke. August 19th. Thank you for catching that.
Okay, thank you, Ryan. Thank you, Tom. So I'm going to turn the mic over to Phil to go ahead and start the moderation on this debate. I want to thank both of the candidates. You've got a tough race ahead of you, both of you. Thank you for your service, for everything you guys have done in the past. And we look forward to hearing from you guys. Phil, take it away.
Okay, thanks, Matt. Our first item is going to be an introduction from each candidate. I flipped a coin, and for about 3 minutes, if Chief Luna, you would introduce yourself and tell us why you're running and why you think you're the best person for the job.
Again, good evening to all of you. It's a pleasure to be in front of all of you today. The Sherman Oaks Homeowners Association. You're looking at a man sitting in front of you who wanted to be a police officer from a very early age. I estimate 5 or 6 years old. And I say that I grew up in the unincorporated area of East Los Angeles, and I first saw a LA County Sheriff uniform on a deputy who went to one of my classrooms. And as a young boy, I looked at that uniform and it was like, wow, that's exactly what I want to do. It wasn't easy for me. I was the oldest of 3 kids. My parents didn't speak any English. My father migrated here from Mexico. He was a janitor. My mother was born in Modesto, but her family were farm workers from Michoacan, Mexico. She sold food on the street. And so family-wise, neighborhood-wise, to say that the sheriff's department in that era in the late 60s, early 70s didn't have a very good relationship with the community there. So when people said, hey, you want to be a police officer? It was like, what? What do you want to do that for? They're not the good guys. Well, I believe they were. Just moving on, my journey took me to the Long Beach Police Department, where I served the residents of Long Beach for 36 years. I worked a variety of assignments, from gangs, narcotics, homicide, SWAT, K-9. I was blessed to work those type of assignments. And then at one point I started to want to promote, and I promoted through every rank at the Long Beach Police Department. I actually spent 20 years of my career working in executive management. And then in 2014, I was appointed as the chief of police in Long Beach by then city manager Pat West. I was very successful as the chief, working in a large, complex, diverse city. As most of you are aware, Long Beach is the second largest police department in the county of Los Angeles. During my tenure there, I won 13 different awards from community groups for my community engagement, collaboration and partnership, and able to police just in a very different way. I was very successful in transforming the department, in reducing crime, and raising police accountability as time went on. That is, in a nutshell, who I am and where I come from. I'm sure we'll cover a lot of that more in detail in the questions. Now, why I want to be the sheriff. I believe, and I love law enforcement, I love this profession, and I believe the department right now is dysfunctional. And it's because of the leadership, unfortunately. And it's chaotic. And with my background and experience and my national leadership through the Major City Chiefs Association, which I was elected to the executive board on, I have the capabilities of doing all of the sheriff's job. Thank you.
Okay, Sheriff Villanueva, it's your turn, sir. About 3 minutes.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for being here. Thank you for the Sherman Oaks Homeowners Association for an invitation in this forum. I really appreciate it. And let me tell you who I am. I'm a 36-year veteran of the Sheriff's Department. The last 4 as a sheriff of Los Angeles County. Prior to being a deputy sheriff way back in 1986, I served my country in the United States Air Force, the Air National Guard, and the Army National Guard for a total of 10 years of service in the military. And I have a master's degree in public administration from Cal State Northridge, near and dear to your folks over there, and a doctorate in public administration for the University of Laverne. My platform when I ran 4 years ago was to reform, rebuild, and restore the Sheriff's Department. We have done exactly that. Now I can proudly say that we've reduced citizen complaints a whopping 31% in the course of 4 years in comparison to my predecessor, who was also from Long Beach. We've been able to drop lawsuits from the community against the department by 17%. We've reduced use of force in jails by 21% over a 2-year span. That includes a pandemic, very difficult time. We've also managed to drop employee lawsuits against the department 36%. And my favorite, 39% reduction in lawsuits against the sheriff. Don't ask me why that's my favorite. But the point is the reforms are now working. We have body-worn cameras throughout all of our patrol operations, and now we're experimenting with putting them in our custody environment as well. We've reformed administrative and internal affairs investigations to hold people accountable, and it is working. We've terminated 154 to date. We've disciplined over 1,000, but we haven't done it in a way that is generating multiple lawsuits, wrongful termination lawsuits. These work, and now anytime we're able to open the doors to recruit, we have thousands and thousands of applicants who want to sign up to be deputy sheriffs here in LA County. And that is important because you have to be a good employer to attract employees. It is working. We have challenges. The pandemic itself, running the nation's largest jail system under the pandemic, that was a big challenge, and we succeeded beyond anyone's wildest imagination in that front. During the civil unrest, while everywhere else was falling apart, including the city of Long Beach for the failure of leadership, we actually managed to secure all of the county areas under our jurisdiction, kept them safe. And then we went so far as to secure Long Beach, Santa Monica, the Fairfax district in LA as well. And we did that as a mutual aid coordinator for LA and Orange County. That was my responsibility. I took it seriously and it worked. Now we're facing the big challenges of homelessness, violent crime. We have to move forward and we have to refund and rebuild up our workforce to be able to meet these challenges ahead. And we're succeeding. And we have the widespread support of the public. And I'll tell you this, when you do 101 town halls, you have a very good idea what LA County wants.
Thank you, Sheriff. Let me start the questions. And I believe this is the first one-on-one debate since the primary election. So it's good to have both of you on the same place. Since we're talking to the Sherman Oaks homeowners, and Sheriff Villanueva, let me start with you.
Sure, there's not even a smidgen left.
I'm listening to the meeting.
Obviously, the LAPD patrols Sherman Oaks, patrols the San Fernando Valley, is responsible for law enforcement. So my question for both of you, starting with the sheriff, is why is the sheriff of Los Angeles County relevant and important to Sherman Oaks and to the Valley?
Well, the sheriff itself is very important to provide public safety for all of Los Angeles County. As a top law enforcement official in the county, my responsibility doesn't end in the limits of my jurisdiction. I set foot on Venice because Venice Boardwalk was literally falling apart. It was utter chaos. The homelessness, the encampments had pretty much destroyed the boardwalk, shut down businesses, chased away the tourists, and the police and LAPD can do a wonderful job when the political apparatus allows them to do their job, and they weren't. And I don't have that same problem. So we went into Venice and we actually lit a fire under someone's rear end and we got the ball rolling and it worked. And that is one of the roles you have to play as sheriff. Because I could simply say, well, that's not my jurisdiction, so I'm not going to do anything. No, when you're the sheriff of Los Angeles County, you're the sheriff of all of Los Angeles County. And we definitely want to assist all of our police departments within the county so they're successful in their jurisdiction and we're their 911 system of choice.
Sheriff Luna, why is the job of sheriff relevant to Sherman Oaks and the San Fernando Valley? Or Chief Luna?
Go ahead.
Thank you, Alex. It's very important. The sheriff is the only elected law enforcement leader, executive in the Los Angeles County, and crime absolutely has no borders. And although Sherman Oaks in the Van Nuys area is patrolled by the Los Angeles Police Department, the Sheriff's Department patrols the areas around this very important area. Working in collaboration and partnership with LAPD is critical and very important. It's very important to have a relationship between the sheriff and the chief of the Los Angeles Police Department, and then every member under our department. Very important to communicate and work together so we can make the community safe together.
Why? Can you give me an example? I mean, if I have a crime, I'm calling 911, the LAPD is answering, not the sheriff's department.
It is not, but what if it's a smash and grab and you have, or a home invasion robbery, and immediately the suspects get on the 405 freeway? A crime broadcast would go out and immediately the sheriff's department, CHP, gets notified, and we're all working in partnership to apprehend and hold the suspects accountable who did the crime. So that is absolutely critical that we're working in conjunction together to make sure we're solving the crime. And many times you'll see that because of social media, the crimes are very transient. We talk about no borders. So the sheriff's department can have 4 or 5 crimes in their area, and they could be another 5 or 6 crimes in LAPD's jurisdiction. Our detectives work together, they solve the crime. Maybe we get the FBI involved, maybe there's other agencies involved, and that collaboration and coordination is very critical in today's age, so that suspects don't stay ahead of the police.
All right, thanks. Sheriff Villanueva, I've covered this issue a lot. You've talked about it a lot. The Board of Supervisors, unprecedented move, just voted 4-1 to put a ballot in front of voters to give them the ability to terminate for cause a sheriff in Los Angeles County. Only a sheriff, not an assessor, not any other, not a district attorney, only the sheriff. I think people want to know, what is the problem between you and the Board of Supervisors?
Well, the problem is really simple. It's actually not a problem. It's just a way of life. The Board of Supervisors, their goal and aspiration is to control all of county government, and they do not want to have an independently elected sheriff who actually can make their own independent decisions. They want to control the sheriff just like they control all 37 of the county departments, and they dictate to the departments how they do their job. Imagine corruption occurring at the county level and the sheriff does not investigate it. Well, you know, the district attorney is not going to investigate it, and until it rises to the level of the federal interest, then the corruption just festers. And you know the names: Lee Baca, Paul Tanaka, Weitzler, Englander, LA, the Department of Water and Power. The list goes on, and no local people were held accountable by local authorities. Why? Because there was no public corruption investigation initiated by the sheriff's department. The district attorney was too busy looking the other way, as instructed by the Board of Supervisors. There has to be independence to hold everybody accountable. There has to be check and balance. And ultimately, you cannot have 4 votes overrule the will of 5 million registered voters.
So you don't feel you answer to the Board of Supervisors, if that's the correct word?
I answer to the Sherman Oaks Homeowners Association. I answer to the residents of Los Angeles County. That is the beauty of the separation of powers. We need an elected county mayor. We need to have the Board of Supervisors be only a legislative branch, and the executive branch should include, obviously, a mayor, sheriff, district attorney. That's how it's supposed to work, but we don't have that right now.
Chief Luna, do you have a viewpoint, an opinion? I know you've used the term dysfunctional, chaotic, mismanaged. Is part of what you're referring to this relationship or lack of between the sheriff and the Board of Supervisors, and how important is that to you?
The Board of Supervisors would not have put this forth on their 4-1 vote if we didn't have a rogue sheriff. I mean, the bottom line is we have a sheriff that's not holding himself accountable. He's not complying with subpoenas. He doesn't comply with oversight. I could go on and on. It's all well documented. Although I'm opposed to the charter amendment myself, because I believe the voters should be in charge of electing their sheriff, let's be honest. This is being proposed in response to this sheriff. The way to fix this is to elect me in November as your next sheriff. I will be accountable. I will be cooperative with oversight. I will comply with subpoenas. I'm a complete contrast to what's happening right now. You cannot have a dysfunctional relationship against the supervisors. I get it. I don't work for them, nor should Alex work for them, but he needs to work with them. And that's the big contrast between him and I. I will work with him. He's incapable of doing that.
Sheriff Villanueva, in your opening statement, you talked about all of your accomplishments and the reductions in lawsuits and body-worn cameras and so forth. So there seems to be a disconnect between how you view your first term in office and how Chief Luna does. So do you agree that there is that disconnect? And how do you explain that? Are we looking at the wrong thing, different things?
Well, I can tell you this, that Chief Luna expressed wonderfully in his own words how hopelessly dependent he is on the Board of Supervisors. He regurgitated every single failed talking point. When he talks about dysfunctionality, was there dysfunctionality in getting the body-worn cameras? Was there dysfunctionality in getting ICE out of the jails? Was there dysfunctionality when we renovated and reformed all of our policies to address the tragic murder of George Floyd? We did all those things. The fact is, the Sheriff's Department relies on the Board of Supervisors for funding, and that's about it. Because when I go and do 101 town halls, I'm talking directly to the community. I don't have to rely on the board that hides behind Zoom and plexiglass. I directly take the case to the public. The public tells me what's right and what's wrong, and we address it. So unless Mr. Luna wants to actually describe what dysfunctionality means, that's a code word for I want to work for the Board of Supervisors.
All right, well, let's move on because obviously that's why you're running against each other. Sheriff, you had mentioned homelessness and violent crime as the two key issues that you think people that you talk to, and you mentioned your 101 town halls, are concerned about. Are those the two key issues that you'll focus on going forward, or are there additional ones?
Well, there's an additional one that, again, it arises from doing town halls. People are sick and tired of the street takeovers, the racing, all these very dangerous things that you've seen captured on video that result in tragedies. They're tired of these things. We have to address them. They're sick of the illegal cannabis dispensaries in the basin, of the legal cannabis grows up in the high desert, and we've addressed them. Twice we've invaded the high desert, done hundreds of search warrants. We've shut down more than 80% of all the illegal cannabis grows in the high desert. We received over $2 billion in cartel marijuana value, street value. So these things have severely impacted those grows in the high desert. And that is just one part of it. But when it comes to homelessness, and I'll point to Venice as a prime example, these people had destroyed the boardwalk. The city of LA abandoned the boardwalk. They abandoned the residents. They abandoned the tourists. They abandoned the business owners. And had I not set foot on there, which my opponent never would ever, he would have rather eat his own liver than going into Venice. That's what made the difference, because we got the ball rolling. We did the same in San Vicente in the VA Center. We did the same on Olvera Street. Homelessness is a major crisis. It requires a crisis emergency approach. And right now, this attitude of the county and the city, like, well, you know, we'll figure it out someday. No, because people's lives are being lost every day. 5 a day on the street.
You're muted, Phil, somehow.
Chief, I think there was an insult there, but what is your approach to homelessness? And would you, for example, have taken your people to Venice Beach like Sheriff Villanueva did?
Yeah, there's been several insults. I'm used to that with him. So the status quo isn't working or must go as regard to homelessness. I don't think much of anything many government agencies or private agencies are really working right now. We absolutely need to do more to help the unhoused, the mentally ill, and the addicted. When I was a chief in Long Beach, we were very successful. And actually pre-COVID, we were one of the only agencies that was reducing homelessness because we were collaborating and working together with our health department. It wasn't just the police coming in and doing it on our own. We were working with community groups, with private organizations, faith-based organizations, and we were starting to make a difference. And then COVID hit, and we all know what happened there. We absolutely need a 360 holistic approach to doing it. One agency is not going to do this. And I know that the sheriff's talking, or Alex is talking about Venice and some of these other locations. I think you in the media have dug a little deeper, and you find out that because you show up on the day of a cleanup with the cowboy hat and say you fixed it all doesn't mean you were actually fully engaged in fixing it. I have talked to several agencies in both LA City and LA County who are very upset with the lack of collaboration and partnership with this sheriff. It's got to change. It's the only way we can do it. We have to start shifting away from law enforcement will always have to be involved, but we have to start shifting away with alternative responses. So then our deputies, our police officers can focus on crime. You mentioned crime earlier. The trajectory of crime is going in the wrong direction. We need to stop blaming others for crime and start doing something about it ourselves.
Thank you. I know homelessness is a huge issue for this organization, and I can tell you, having been to Venice 20 times in the past year and this VA, and I know Mike Bonin said all this was in the works long before Sheriff Villanueva and his cowboy hat showed up, but to give the Sheriff's Department credit and his homeless outreach team, from an objective point of view, nothing concrete happened until the Sheriff's Department showed up from my perspective covering that on the news. So let's move on. And let me ask you a question on a different subject. And let me start with Chief Luna. You did not support, and correct me if I'm wrong, the recall of DA George Gascon. Sheriff Villanueva was strongly in support of it. And this is something that all of us have been following in the news. Obviously, the recall didn't qualify. Is it fair to blame Gascon and his policies for the increase in violent crime, or is that too simplistic? And what are your views on the DA, Chief?
My job as the sheriff is to build relationships that keep our community safe. It's not to take the lead on recalls and blame other people. Honestly, if we're going to put a blame on violent crime, it needs to be all of us. Alex, myself, all of us included, because we all play a role in that, in bringing people together to figure out how to be innovative, using national best practices. Let's roll up our sleeves, stop making excuses, stop blaming people, and let's address crime. We can do this, but it has to be outside of policing. It has to be a partnership with our community, with non-governmental agencies. And regarding the DA, I don't agree with everything Gascon does. There's a lot of things that we just disagree on, but here's the difference between my opponent and I can pick up the phone and call him and work something out. If one of you on this call is a victim and we need to do something for our victims, I can work in partnership and get something done. He can't even pick up the phone and call him. They hate each other. That's not the way that people expect their government, the people they elect in office, to behave towards each other. It's not functional, it's dysfunctional.
Sheriff, do you hate each other? And what are your thoughts on Gascon surviving the recall, since you were strongly in favor of it?
Well, I think Mr. Luna has taken a lot of liberty with the description of my relationship with Mr. Gascon. I think he's probably a decent man at heart, but he is hopelessly misguided, because I have 13,677 reasons why he should not be the district attorney, because that's how many cases he rejected in 2021, his first full year in office, specifically because of his special orders. So when you have historically high trends in rising crime and you let 13,677 crooks walk away with no consequence, that has an impact on crime.
Can I just interrupt you? Could you give us a specific example, the kind of case that your department presented that he rejected, that perhaps a previous administration would have filed? Give us a couple of examples.
Here's a real simple one. When we did prostitution stings, because a lot of complaints of human trafficking, red light district, Pomona PD did the same thing we did. We had hundreds of arrests, reverse stings, and John's, every single one was thrown away. When we did the raids in the high desert, where we had to seize all the cannabis and shut down the illegal grows, we arrested hundreds of people. Every single felony was turned down. We had 7 cases of wage theft presented, and he rejected 5 of them because of his special directive. These are things that are hurting the community, and he's just ignoring them totally because he's living in the ivory tower somewhere, doesn't see the suffering of people.
But I thought you were worried about violent crime, not prostitution and wage theft.
But when we're going to violent crime, for example, the precursors to them, how many cases are misdemeanors that go unchecked that become a violent crime later? You know, that's quite a few of those. And we go to violent crime itself. He takes the lowest crime possible and dismisses all the other charges. And that's what's happening again and again. And people get out right away, the revolving door. It is not helping. So there's no gun enhancements, there's no gang enhancements. That means that the lowest rate possible or sentence is what he's giving. Anything that's somehow equitable, his famous word, it is not.
Right. All right. Well, while I have you on that subject, there was that terrible story of the off-duty Monterey Park police officer, Gabrielle Solario, who was killed in the Downey parking lot about 10 days ago. He had been sentenced to 180 days for previous offenses, but the sheriff's department custody division released him after a day. So how is that jive with what you just said, criticizing Gascon?
Absolutely false narrative. There was 5 charges that he was facing, and it was domestic violence, use of a weapon, a knife, and he did not file those cases. You reduced them to a burglary, property crime, which then becomes eligible for the reduced sentence. And he got time served already, so that's why he got the 1 day off. But had he charged a domestic violence and use of a weapon enhancement, he would have had 1.5 years in state prison, and that officer will be alive today. That falls squarely on Gascon's decision. Shame on him, and that's a black eye for the district attorney's office.
All right. Well, I appreciate you clarifying that, because that was a controversial aspect of that crime. So, Chief Luna, I know we've touched on this, and you've already answered it to some degree, but you're very clear that you view yourself as 180 degrees, is the quote, "I'm 180 degrees different from Sheriff Villanueva." And again, you've touched on this a little bit, but why do you say that in such a dramatic way?
I think it's coming out to the viewers now. The way we approach the Board of Supervisors, the way we approach the DA. Honestly, I could just go down a list of most relationships, whether they're inside law enforcement, outside law enforcement, with the community, with contract cities. You just go down the line, and unfortunately, my opponent is recognized as somebody who is somebody who's abrasive, somebody who thinks he's smarter than everyone else in the room, somebody who doesn't like to listen, doesn't listen to his own command staff. That's why he's got a number of lawsuits that are very well documented recently from former high-level people who are accusing him of a lack of integrity.
Since violent crime is up, homelessness is a crisis, people are concerned about becoming victims at any place at any time. Maybe the old relationship model isn't working, and maybe his idea of being abrasive is what's needed now. Is that possible?
I don't believe so. That's not the way you make a community safe. You create public safety through, number one, getting the full cooperation and consent of the community that you are working with. You work with people, you work with other government agencies, with other police agencies, with the courts, with the DA. That's the only way you're going to get anything done. With the state legislature, I mentioned earlier that I had an executive board position on major city chiefs. I was doing this at a national level with Congress, with the White House, with people at DOJ. You look at national best practices, those are relationships. That's a cooperative effort, and that you do consistently. You can't do it when everyone's angry at you or doesn't even want you in the room because of your abrasive nature, your nature of pointing the finger at everybody else, blaming everybody else. It just doesn't work. That's where I'm a 180 from him. And that's why I'm telling our community, if you want to change, I'm the change.
Sheriff, do you want to respond to that?
Well, that's what would President Biden say? I would use the word malarkey, I think would be the proper term right there. And I'll tell you this, the relationships that count, my relationship with Councilman Kevin De Leon, we work together in a collaborative fashion with the LA Homeless Service Authority, City Sanitation, Department of Mental Health, our host team, his staff. We got Olvera Street cleaned up. Did anybody complain about that? Of course not, because we're working together. Jackie Lacey, the former DA, we met every 3 months. I visited her in her office. She visited me in my office. Chief Moore, LAPD, we visit each other every 3 months. And that is collaboration. Every month I meet with LA County Chiefs of Police Association, which Mr. Luna should be aware of that because he was a member of that organization. Somehow he forgot. And so the point is, I collaborate with everyone, but there comes a magical moment we realize these people are politicians that have no interest in fixing the problem. I am laser focused on the problem.
Thank you. All right, we're going to get to questions submitted by the Sherman Oaks Homeowners Association in just a second, but let me try this one more time because all of this, the past half hour has been fascinating, but let me start with Chief Luna and come back to the question that I tried to ask you earlier. All of this is interesting to listen to, but why is it relevant to me if I live in Sherman Oaks, if I live in Studio City, if I live in the Valley, which the sheriff doesn't patrol?
Well, the sheriff is the #1 law enforcement person in the county of Los Angeles. For anybody in Sherman Oaks, even though LAPD directly patrols your neighborhood, the sheriffs oversee the courts. They oversee the jails, the custody operations. For mutual aid purposes, they can come in and do that. But remember this, that it's not like it used to be once upon a time. Alex mentioned street takeovers. That is a very transient crime that's occurring. So we need task forces with the sheriffs, with LAPD, with CHP to solve some of those issues, along with violent crime, whether they're smash and grabs and everything else. It is critical that the residents of Sherman Oaks understand that the sheriff of LA County sets the tone for the entire county of Los Angeles and the region and the nation in law enforcement. And if you're happy with what he's doing, then, you know, God bless you. But if you want change and you're tired of all the scandals, allegations of corruption that are happening about on a weekly basis in all the local papers, then you're looking for a change and you need to vote for me in November.
Sheriff, do you want to add anything to that? Why it's relevant to vote for the sheriff in the Valley?
Well, I'll tell you this. The Board of Supervisors defunded the department 3 years in a row. 145 million one year, 160 million the second. They removed 1,281 positions. Then they imposed a hiring freeze and we lost another 1,025 employees. For those doing math, that's 2,306 positions that the board has done to harm the sheriff's department. And my opponent has not one thing to say about it. So he wants to talk about crime fighting. Well, you need crime fighters to fight crime. So all these things about task force and all these wonderful collaborations and relationship building, I'd say with who? We're running on a skeleton crew in some of our patrol stations. We've lost 30% of our manpower in patrol, and that impacts communities like Sherman Oaks, impacts the Valley, impacts all of LA County, because it's going to take a collaborative model of us working together to fix the homeless crisis and to address violent crime. It's not going to happen with a shell of a sheriff's department. And that is what Mr. Luna wants to deliver because he works for the Board of Supervisors.
Phil, I believe I can respond to that, right?
Sure.
It was stated earlier about the relationship or the importance of working with the Board of Supervisors. It doesn't take a genius to figure out, and most of you are business owners, if your bosses that hold the purse strings to your budget, if you're calling them names, they're all women. This man has demeaned them all, told them he was threatening them and taking them behind a shed. How do you talk that way to the people who have the purse strings to your budget? And then you expect to provide the best services to the residents of the county and your employees? You cannot govern that way. That's what this man has done over the last 3.5 years.
All right, let me start with a question from one of the Sherman Oaks Homeowner Association members for Chief Luna. Long Beach PD is a 10th the size of the Sheriff's Department. During your tenure as chief and prior to that, they've had their share of police brutality and corruption issues. You know the Douglas Zerby story. He was playing with a hose. He was shot. Police officers Miguel Contreras and Miguel Vasquez beat up an individual. So the question is, how do you police your department when you don't have the experience of managing a large force like the Sheriff's Department?
Well, let me start off by saying that I 36 years of experience, 20 years of executive experience, and my opponent was promoted from lieutenant, jumped 7 ranks to be the sheriff. So if anyone doesn't have the experience, we're actually seeing it play out with the mismanagement of the department right now. In regards to any incident that happened in Long Beach, either while I was the chief of police or some of those cases you mentioned were before I was the chief of police, I'll tell you what, you can look at my body of work. And yes, when you run a large, complex organizations, you're going to face adversity and bad things are going to happen. But here is the key, that how does the leader handle adversity? Do they handle it with integrity? They're honest about it. They come out and say, hey, let's look at it. You're okay with oversight looking at it, even coming in with an independent body to look at it, and then report the findings to the community. And then if you did something wrong, admit, you know what, we could have done a lot better here. But here's the fact. In Long Beach, while I was a police chief for 7 years, I reduced officer-involved shootings by 50%. Please look at the stats on the sheriff's side with my opponent on his officer or deputy-involved shootings. Number 2, my uses of force, I reduced by 28%, and my citizen complaints by 33%. I am an experienced law enforcement executive who's had transformed the Long Beach Police Department, and that's exactly what I'm going to do as a sheriff.
All right, thank you. Sheriff Villanueva, one of the other questions, and this touches a little bit on what Chief was referring to with the Civilian Oversight Commission, which has subpoenaed you, which has requested you, which you have refused to so far appear in front of. One of the big issues was so-called deputy gangs. And I know you don't accept that term. We hear this in the news, that there's a controversy over deputy gangs. So can you explain to us what that is about and what your opinion is about their existence and what should be done if they indeed do exist?
Well, the issue is the term deputy gang was coined by political activists and used by the Board of Supervisors to discredit the Sheriff's Department and to discredit me as the sheriff. Plain and simple. There was no crisis. Did you hear about this issue before I took office? Of course you didn't. It became part of the vernacular in political spheres when I took office. So 50 years of history of this, allegedly, and all of a sudden it's a crisis, December 3rd of 2018. I'm not buying it. The issue of the Kennedy Hall incident, we took action decisively. We terminated 4 employees from East LA Station, and we suspended 22, and we did all the documentation, gave it to the Inspector General. This is all about transparency. I sponsored Assembly Bill 958 that became state law, modeled after the Sheriff's Department's policy on the issue of subgroups. These policies are working. That law came into effect January 1st of 2022. Now, the issue of deputy gang is used as a political tool and a wedge. And I've challenged anybody who claims there's a deputy gang, identify one. Bring that person before me, and we will be more than happy to terminate them if we have the evidence there. And not a single person, this is very notable, including Mr. Luna, who talks about it very freely and insulting the people that he's proposing to lead. He cannot come up with a name either. So when we have evidence, we do investigations, we hold people accountable, but pretty much it's just a tool to smear the department and smear the reputation of the sheriff. And noting that the department is 54% Latino, it's starting to look decidedly, I don't know, you decide.
So you prefer the term subgroups to gangs?
Subgroups is more accurate. There has to be some type of misconduct to then take action. I cannot fire people because they have a tattoo. Imagine if I did that, the taxpayers, the bill that they'd have to foot would be horrendous. And then all of the recruitment of the department would just evaporate. No one's going to join a department like that.
And why do you defy lawful subpoenas and refuse to appear before the Inspector General and Civilian Oversight Committee?
Phil Schuman, thank you so much for asking that question. I've been waiting to hear that question. just the way you articulated. We have not defied a single subpoena. If we disagree with a political subpoena, that we've already answered the information, we go to court to get clarification from the judge. Unbeknownst to my rival here and people in the public that are uninformed, we've been in front of the Oversight Commission. I've testified under oath to the Inspector General on the issue of deputy gangs 4 times. We did, the last one was April of this year, and I volunteered to do again in May, and they declined because I guess they didn't have an audience to shame me with. So
I mean, you view this as you view this as all as a political distraction from you being able to do your job.
That's all it is, a political distraction, because when they had McDonald, my predecessor in office, the Inspector General, the Oversight Commission, the supervisors, they did not care about deputy gangs. So all of a sudden it's a crisis under my watch. I'm just not buying this.
So Chief Luna, you've been listening to this. How do you respond? And is this an important issue for voters, or is this just something for the LA Times to write about?
First of all, I want to say that I have ultimate respect for the men and women of the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department. That's something Alex just mentioned that I don't, and that's absolutely not true. But like in every organization, there are challenges and issues. And I'll tell you what, I have been campaigning for this job for the last almost 9 months. The #1 issue that comes up throughout this entire county, and it's not just from elected officials, or as my opponent just said, politicians. It is from very concerned community members, from Calabasas to Compton. I mean, go all over the county, and people are asking, and they're very concerned about this. And this is the #1 reason why, unfortunately, the residents of LA County do not trust the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department. And more specifically, they don't trust Alex Villanueva. That's why 70% of the people in the primary voted against him. And this is one of the #1 issues, unfortunately. So somebody else with credibility needs to come in and make sure that this isn't happening, so that then we could finally open everything we can to the community and say, hey, this is not happening. We have amazing people that work here.
Let's let Sheriff Villanueva respond, because he's quite animated here listening to you.
You know what? This is why Luna was recruited specifically for that. When you do 101 town halls, you get an awful lot of information from voters, from constituents, from all over the county, which Mr. Luna has not done. He's been at a lot of cocktail parties in ivory towers talking to politicians and the supervisors. Oh yeah, because they want to talk about their special tool to beat up the sheriff with. But when you talk to the citizens, they're talking about homelessness. They're talking about violent crime. They're talking about street takeovers. They're talking about speeding in front of schools. That is the stuff they care about. You know, in 101 town halls, I've had 2 people ask that question, 2 in 101. And then on top of that, we did a survey, and it did not go anywhere near the top of the survey. It was way down the list. So we have the quantifiable data. Perhaps Mr. Luna can share his quantifiable data.
Well, I think we're going to have to agree to disagree on that for now. I mean, it is a very emotional, important issue. Let me ask a different question completely from one of the audience members. Chief Luna, what is your view and your position on issuing concealed carry permits? A lot of people are wondering if they need to start arming themselves because of our increase in violent crime. What are your views on that, sir?
Regarding CCW permits, I follow the law. And it's exactly what's happening now. I mean, obviously, we know what happened in the Supreme Court lately, and we're going to be issuing a lot more CCWs. My push is that we have a system in place where we hold gun owners responsible. We want accountable gun owners. We want people who have clean records. We have to do background checks on them. They have to have training to make sure, if unfortunately they have to use the weapon, that they properly understand the law and the limitations that they have, or that parameters.
But would you, in general, would you say, sorry to interrupt, but in general, would you say that you would be liberal in granting those, or would you be very careful about that?
I would be careful. I don't want everybody out there carrying a gun. You have to be, we have a crisis of guns in this country, gun violence. We've talked about violent crime over and over in this meeting, and there are a ton of guns out there. If somebody's going to carry a gun, I want responsible gun ownership that we can track.
Sheriff Villanueva, the same question.
Well, I can tell you this, if Luna were to become sheriff, the number of people asking for CCW is going to quadruple because they're going to be inferior for their own safety. I will tell you this, the system we have in place does exactly what he's talking about. Perhaps he should study a little bit more about the job and what we do before he makes all these wonderful suggestions that we're not going to reinvent the wheel. That's why we have a CCW unit, and they do due diligence. They follow state law to the T. We had to adjust because of the Supreme Court decision. Now we have even more applications. And so we're working in collaboration, but we're also working with the state attorney general's office. We have an armed prohibited persons task force that is dedicated to actually doing door knocks and removing firearms from people who are convicted felons that are prohibited from possessing the firearms. Dangerous work, but we're doing that. We're doing that in collaboration with the attorney general, and it is working. A lot of work ahead, but we're going to continue honoring the Supreme Court decision. We're obligated to. What we need now, however, we need the personnel from the other chiefs of polices, or they need to start doing their own CCWs because we can't handle all 10 million residents of LA County.
Chief, do you want to respond to that?
No, just I think he's accurate when he said it does take a lot of staffing time, and I respect that. And I know the sheriff's department has been doing it for many years, even going back before Alex was elected. But I want to comment on something because he made a comment about people are going to need guns if I become the sheriff. I want to point out that during my tenure as chief of police in Long Beach, I reduced violent crime by 6.5% and property crime by 10%. During Alex Villanueva's tenure, violent crime went up in the areas of the LA County sheriffs. So when we're talking numbers, please stick to the facts.
I thought that was
community members.
Okay. Let me ask you a different question. I often wonder in covering the news, especially with everybody with their cell phone recording everything that a law enforcement officer does every minute out in public, trying to do their job, and some of the attitudes by some people about law enforcement. Let me start this with Sheriff Villanueva. If you could design the perfect law enforcement officer for 2022 in Southern California, what would that person be like? What characteristics do you want? What traits? What values?
Well, I can start with one thing. We've already hired them. We stopped hiring out of state. We're hiring locally only. We raised the educational level from a high school to a 2-year college minimum, 2 years of college. And that's a start. We do a very deep dive on social media to see what their background looks like. So when we do our background investigation, is very, very extensive. Obviously, we go through all the employers. We go through their school records, their financial history, neighbors, associates, co-workers. And in the academy, we're also looking for attitudes and biases. So we do evaluations where the recruits evaluate each other. So we get a good handle as they're progressing through the academy, who that person is, what they're really like. And some people get weeded out because they start showing who their true self once they're hired, and we don't allow them to graduate. So we are hiring the right people right now, and they're coming from the communities. That is the single most important thing, and that is the essence of community policing.
Chief, same question to you. I mean, Sheriff Villanueva talked about the academy standards and so forth, but I'm talking about more from, if you take a step back and just look at a person, what kind of person do you want as a law enforcement officer?
Number one, integrity. Integrity is always at the top of the list. You want somebody who is service oriented and cares more about the profession and people around them than really themselves. They have to be patient. They have to have a guardian mentality, but have a warrior in them, because in this line of work, I'm going to say,
Yeah.
and I think Alex and I will agree, it's one of the toughest jobs out there.
Well, that's interesting you use those terms. I'm sorry to interrupt, but it led right into what I was going to ask next, which is Connie Rice, who's a very well-known attorney, was very heavily involved in a lot of LAPD reform with Chief Bratton and Chief Beck, not so much maybe with the Sheriff's Department. But she used that term that others have used, that the law enforcement has to transition, and tell me, let's start with Chief Luna since you were talking, has to transition from the warrior mentality to the guardian mentality. You're saying you maybe need a little bit of both?
Like everything else, the answer's in the middle. I completely, I respect Attorney Rice, and I don't disagree with her. Law enforcement has evolved. The people want their law enforcement officers, whether they're police officers, deputies, to be different and more caring. There's a lot of social work involved. But you have to be able to have that button in you that if you are responding to, for example, an active shooter at a school, or somebody decides, that is on parole that doesn't want to go back to jail, they're going to fight you tooth and nail. You have to find that balance between both, and they're out there. And I do agree with Alex that I think the Sheriff's Department is hiring those. Long Beach Police Department's absolutely hiring those. And our profession has really evolved, especially the bigger agencies across the country, because we've learned a lot of lessons from each other. So yes, guardian for sure. That's
Sheriff, warrior or guardian or both?
Actually, I'm going to go with the guardian, but it's something more than just guardian, because guardian is a very passive term. It's actually, and this is what I've been pushing within the organization since I took over as sheriff, is we're looking for an engagement model of policing. And the prior one was an enforcement model. We measure our success by how many bad guys went to jail. In the engagement model, it's about building relationships with the community, not the politicians like Luna, but with the community, and how many people don't go to jail. And we're steering away from it, particularly our youth. And that is that engagement model. So now, as a tool of a measurement for our evaluations of our deputies working patrol, we want to see community engagement as an example when we're writing their personnel evaluations. So this is institutionalizing the reforms that we're putting at the top. We're communicating throughout the organization. That is how you affect change in large organizations.
Well, how do you define or measure engagement?
It can be very loosely defined. All we're looking is for an example. What did they do? Did they finally organize a neighborhood watch in a particular area that was getting hit with a lot of crime? Are they attending the neighborhood watch? Did they do coffee with a cop? Did they take kids, for example, a trip to Dodger Stadium for something? Things that they can do with the community. Mm-hmm. And those are engagement opportunities that are very, very important to improve the relationships between the department and the community as one.
All right, we've got about 10 minutes left. I think this might be interesting to let you two talk to each other. So Chief Luna, what is it that you wanted to ask Sheriff Villanueva that we haven't touched on? And then we'll ask Sheriff Villanueva the same thing of you.
Yeah, the one question I have of Alex, and it came up, and he passionately said there's no gangs in the Sheriff's Department. His chief of staff, who he handpicked, wasn't he part of a deputy gang, and that's somebody who works right next to you?
Well, actually, you know what? I'm glad you asked that question, and this shows how tragically misinformed you are. That person had a tattoo, and he had a spotless employment record. Did that make him a gang member? Because if you're going to label someone with a tattoo a gang member, you're really painting a broad brush on a lot of segment of the population and of a department you're proposing to lead. That's not going to work very well at all. So again, we need facts, not tattoos. Tattoos are not going to get you anywhere with that description. We need evidence of misconduct. So again, when I took over, we actually, 19 of the executives, they were from the Lee Baca Paul Tanaka era, that McDonald allowed to stay, we actually transitioned them out of the organization. And that was specifically because I did not value or I did not trust their decision-making. A lot of the misconduct from the past they allowed and they supported. So we gave everybody a clean slate to start. Most of the time it worked, occasionally it didn't work, but that's just human nature in large organizations. We hold everybody accountable.
And Phil, just for clarification, I believe the chief of staff I'm talking about testified in the Oversight Commission that he was a member of the Grim Reaper gang.
Nope, that is false. He said he was a Grim Reaper. He had a Grim Reaper tattoo. He did not call himself a gang member. That was a false title that some publications mistakenly put on there. And you, I don't know if you did that willfully, chief, or erroneously. He did not call himself a gang member.
So what is a Grim Reaper?
It's a tattoo.
Signifying
a tattoo of like the angel or the death shroud with the.
No, I know what it looks like. I'm saying you're saying that doesn't signify membership in a group.
It's exactly what it is. It was a membership in a social subgroup dating back to probably the 1980s and 90s. No longer exists today in 2022, and it marked a passage in time from the 1980s and 90s.
All right, Sheriff, what question would you like to ask Chief Luna?
Well, you described dysfunction, but all the dysfunction you're referring to is opinions of the Board of Supervisors and their surrogates. What dysfunction in the actual operation of the department you see?
Well, I don't think we have enough time to try and answer that. I can start off with just being rogue, the master of chaos. How many of your, it's very rare to see people that are so close to you in rank file lawsuit after lawsuit behind allegations of significant misconduct, which include lying over and over. It's not just happening by 1, 2, or 3 people. That's dysfunction. And it is, and you mentioned some of it. Dysfunctional relationship with the Board of Supervisors, dysfunctional relationship with the district attorney, with the inspector general. I could go on and on and on. It is just dysfunction from one side to the other. And that is not the way you lead a law enforcement agency. Alex, you have to be a leader that models behavior to the deputies, because if the deputies were to behave the way you do publicly, I think some of them may get in trouble.
I think the Deputy Association overwhelmingly endorsed the sheriff.
I think, in fact, as a matter of fact, I received 86% of the vote of the Deputy Sheriff's Union, but my opponent, his own union did not endorse him, and they know him best. That is a very telling statement right there.
Sheriff, you also see.
Let me butt in there, because
okay, go ahead.
It's like a lot of the conversation today, he's just making up information. The Long Beach POA, as you know, Alex, and you know this very well, other agencies do not endorse candidates running for another department. They will not step over ALADS or POPA, so they stayed out of it. There's a difference. So please be honest about your answer.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I got the endorsement of the LA Airport Police Association, the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Association, the LA Police Protective League, and they all endorsed after both ALADS and POPA endorsed. So I think you need to get your facts checked out.
And you tried to get the endorsement of the Long Beach POA, and they absolutely said no to you.
Not quite. They were pressured into by the political apparatus of Long Beach, and you know that very well. You worked very hard on that.
Did you two have any professional or personal relationship between each other? I mean, I know you obviously know each other from your positions, but.
I've come across him from the Chiefs of Police Association, I think years back when he was still the chief. That's about it.
Yeah, from my perspective, when Alex got elected, I actually approached him on several occasions. I reached out. I tried to help him. Just saying, hey, what do you need? What can I do to help you? And I was doing that because I was elected and reelected to the executive board for Major City Chiefs. The LA County Sheriff's Department was actually one of the departments that I was responsible for. And I tried to make him feel at home. He only showed up to one meeting and never showed up again. So that's that LA County Sheriff's chair at Major City Chiefs actually sits empty because he doesn't show up. So I really tried with Alex. I wanted to have a relationship with him, but like most law enforcement professionals, not only in our region, but the nation, they find him very difficult to get along with. He doesn't engage. He's very insular. And again, that's one of the reasons why I'm running. We need a change here.
Well, I will tell you this. There's a major county sheriff's association, which you may be unfamiliar with, which is very different from the major city chiefs association, because the sheriffs are elected, the chiefs are appointed. So their communities of interest are slightly different in that regard. There's also the California State Sheriff's Association. In both organizations, I attend on a regular basis, and I also send my top executives in my stead when I cannot go to there. So no, sorry, not buying that.
All right, so we have just a few minutes left. It seems like we're painting quite a vibrant picture of the two individuals for the voters to choose from. So in sort of a closing statement, if you will, and I'll start with Chief Luna first and have Sheriff Villanueva have the last word. If you could sort of in a closing statement, sir, give us your sense of when we go to mark our vote by mail ballots, or we go to the voting booth in October, November, and it's time to make that final decision for sheriff. What do you want us to be thinking about when we make our choice?
That we can do much better. A law enforcement executive, whether it's the LA County Sheriff's Department or any sheriff's department across the country, has to have the ability to partner and collaborate with not only the group of people he wants, but everybody who impacts safety in the community across the board. You want somebody who is a crime fighter, and I could compare my stats to his any day of the week and my experience as well. I don't blame other people. I don't look for faults. I try to fix the problem, not the blame. And that is critical in picking your next sheriff. You need somebody who's fully engaged with the community, is into relationship-based community. Please look up the Neighborhood Walks program in Long Beach and what we did there. It got national news attention because at the foundation, it was about playing ball with kids in the street, reducing crime, building public trust back with the entire police department. We just need a shift in the way people see law enforcement, and it starts at the top. The men and women of the sheriff's department deserve a better person to be in charge of it. And I am that person. I am the person that's going to listen, that is going to, and I will find compromise for the betterment of our community. I'm not going to fight everything. I'm not going to he calls himself a maverick. Who in the heck wants a maverick as their sheriff? That is not acceptable. So I am the candidate.
Thank you, Chief. And Sheriff Villanueva, again, the same question to you, sir, as we wrap up. What do you want voters to keep in mind when they mark their ballot for sheriff?
Well, there's an old saying that an army of lambs led by a lion will always defeat an army of lions led by a lamb. There you have the lamb right there. The sheriff's department is chock full of lions, and they are doing everything in their power to keep the community safe through thick and thin, through the pandemic, through defunding, through staggering workloads because of the actions of the Board of Supervisors that this gentleman will never cross because he wants to have a relationship with them. And I'll tell you this, I've had two visions of Long Beach. I was there a few weeks ago in an event with the Cambodian community, and there was homeless tents right in front of this banquet hall. There was open drug dealing going on right in front of us there. And this is the Long Beach of Chief Luna. In May 31st, 2020, when Long Beach was being looted and burning and vandalism going on, I was out there in an alley chasing looters while my opponent was hiding in a fire department bunker. And that is what the difference is between myself and my opponent. I actually will lead from the front, not from the rear. And that's what everyone's expecting.
All right, controversial comments from both of you, and I know that you probably both want to respond, but at some point we have to wrap this up. So Sheriff Villanueva, Chief Luna, thank you very much for your time, for your openness and your honesty, and willing to answer some of these tough questions. And we'll turn it back over to Bob and Matt.
All right, thank you, Phil. Really appreciate your moderating.
Thank you, Phil. Great job, both of you. Congratulations, great. Very interesting. I know who I'm voting for. I'm not going to tell you though. But anyway, great job. Next month we have the debate between the two candidates for the county supervisor, which will obviously affect you guys as well. So hopefully it'll be a little bit more engaging than this one was. They said that I'm kidding, Phil. They said they're going to take the gloves off. So anyway, so third Wednesday of next month, tune in everybody, listen to the candidate forum for the county supervisor. And thank you very much, everybody, for attending. And we'll see you next time.
Thank you all. Have a good
Bye,
night.
everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Sheriff.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you,
Appreciate it.
Phil.
Thank you.
We'll see you later.